Hi everybody, very welcome to Mentour and yet another video podcast. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. So today on the video, is the airline business headed towards a complete collapse? What will happen to all of those Boeing and Airbus orders that still exist? And what's going to happen to the prices of flying in the future? Stay tuned.
Wind 31016, everyone right, right on right.
Third one is 31 right. Delta 260, introduced.
This video is brought to you in cooperation with Skillshare. Now, Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of high-quality video courses and pretty much anything that you can imagine. And I know that you are watching this because you are a lifetime learner. You are one of those curious persons who constantly want to improve and find new stuff. Maybe you are finding yourself just like me, sitting at home at the moment and kind of thinking about creative things to do with your time. And in that case, Skillshare is one of the best tools that I've found to do so. You can enroll in classes, and the classes have other participants as well, so it means that you can get some feedback on what you're doing. And I've found that when you find yourself in situations with a lot of stress, then doing something creative is the best way of dealing with it. So maybe you want to improve on your storytelling skills, or maybe you want to go into creative writing or even painting. All of that are courses that exist in Skillshare. A course that I have used myself is low budget filmmaking, which is really good and really fascinating way of finding new techniques to do what I already do. So the first 1,000 who uses this link here below will get 2 months of premium access to Skillshare absolutely for free. And if you choose to sign up, it will be less than $10 per month to continue using Skillshare after. And what I'd like to hear is what you guys think. Which courses you like the best? Give me your tips. Right guys, so what we're going to be doing in this video is basically a continuation of the video that I did a few weeks back about the survival of the airline industry. Now you might think that over 3 weeks not much is going to happen, but in the world we're living right now, where more and more countries are being sucked into this black corona hole, things are actually changing very rapidly. So the first question that I promised that I was going to answer is, will the airline industry completely collapse? And the answer to that is still no. The airline industry will not completely collapse. However, it is looking worse and worse every day. So for every day that goes by with closed borders, with all of the fleet of the world sitting on the ground, and with only cargo flights running, the airline business is going to look more and more different when we get out of this. And we'll talk about that now. So, at the moment, IATA has sent out some figures. It actually came out last week, and they have sent out figures saying that globally, there's about 65 million people that are dependent on the aviation industry to survive. They're saying that 25 million of those jobs are currently at risk, because what we're seeing now is an unprecedented onslaught onto the business. Now, 3 weeks ago, I was talking about how people were going to be afraid to go about flying, and maybe they were going to be afraid of getting the virus or being stuck in a hotel. That's still true, but what has happened after that is, of course, that we are seeing mass unemployment throughout the world. Millions of people are filing for unemployment, and that is going to have a compounding effect onto the airline business, because when less people are working, less people have money. When there's less money, it means that less people are traveling. And on top of that, you will have struggling businesses, and where traditionally the airlines have made the most money is from the lucrative business travelers, the ones that are willing to pay for slightly higher ticket prices to get where they want to go when they want to go. So if you have less people traveling, less people paying these business tickets, you will have a huge impact on the airline industry. And while 3 weeks ago, we were talking about up to $100 billion that is going to be missing out of the pockets of the airline this year. We're now seeing more than $200 billion lost. It's an expected drop with 44% between 2019 and 2020, and that is a huge drop. Now, what will this mean then? Well, the fact is that this drop is of course huge for the entire business, but it is worse for some airlines than others. So you have a few very well capitalized airlines out there, airlines that could potentially survive sitting on the ground with no positive cash flow for a year and a half even, and still survive on their own money. But then you also have airlines that just cannot do this. Airlines that have, a lot of mortgage on their fleets, for example, and generally much worse economic position. And while it was a little bit unclear whether or not there was going to be bankruptcies 3 weeks ago, now we can say with absolute certainty that there will be. We just don't know exactly who it will be, because at the moment a lot of airlines are asking the countries, the states, for help. And whether or not there are going to be help coming, we will see. It's already been a rescue package voted through in the United States, which is effectively going to hold the airlines kind of operating, providing that they do not fire any people up until September. And we're likely going to see similar deals popping up. But those deals are not going to be for everyone. So you will definitely see airlines going under as part of this. Now, when I'm saying that the airline industry will not disappear, I am sure of that. And that's because the airline industry is an essential part of daily life, right? They are an essential infrastructure component. So the countries cannot afford to lose the airlines that are feeding their capitals, that are feeding their financial systems. So there will be help given to airlines. But how that is going to end up, and whether or not we're going to see actual nationalizations of airlines, which is something we haven't talked about or even seen in decades, that remains to be seen. It is possible that we're going to start to see state-owned airlines again, and that will bring a whole new set of problems to the industry, because how is non-state-owned airlines going to compete with state-owned airlines in the same way? Right? This has always been a problem, and we are going to see much more of this discussion coming up in the next year or so. It is also likely that we are going to see what we call consolidation. This means that some airlines might not disappear completely, but they might be bought up by other airlines. You might see mergers between major airlines, and you are definitely going to see a drop in the amount of flights between major cities. While during the last few years there's been an intense fight between several airlines of trying to compete against each other and increasing capacity on certain routes, it's likely that with this crisis, with the cash flow issue that they're going to have, they're going to start to try to pull back and only concentrate on the most economical routes and cut the routes that are not that economical, which is going to have a negative impact on you as a consumer, but we'll get there very soon. So that is likely what I think is going to happen. Okay, we're going to see some huge, well-capitalized airlines taking over market share from other airlines that are going to either contract or disappear. We're going to see airlines merge with each other, and we're going to see a consolidation throughout the airline industry. Something that's probably been needed for a while anyway. But what about all of these aircrafts then that are flying around? You've probably heard a lot of reports already about the older fuel guzzlers, the Boeing 757, 767, 747, Airbus 380, being transferred into boneyards. And that is a logical continuation of this. As the airlines are now starting to feel the kind of compression of cash flow, as they're starting to have some real problems with cash, the first thing they are going to want to try to get rid of are the aircraft that are less economical, that are less efficient. So this is why I think that even though there's a huge backlog of Airbus 320 Neos, or Boeing 737 MAX, of Airbus 350 and 787s, I don't think that we are going to see a lot of cancellations of these orders. We might see a few, but I think that in general, the airlines that have ordered these aircraft, they are going to want to use the efficiency that these aircraft will provide them with. So it is more likely that we'll see the older aircraft being phased out quicker in order to get in the newer aircraft. This might mean that the fleet size would contract a little bit in order to make the airline more and more efficient. But I think that the ones that are on order, to a great extent, we are going to see them arriving in. Okay? Well, some of you might be coming back to me and saying that, well, you know, we're hearing some rumors about, for example, KLM picking back up some 747 out from the Bourne yard. What's that all about in that case? Well, what is also happening right now is something that's very interesting, and that is that we are seeing a huge price drop on crude oil, which means that if an airline haven't completely hedged their fuel price, as in, you know, they're not in a contract to pay the same price over several years, well, then they will be able to avail of this lower oil price. And if they can do that, right now you have a special situation where air freight is really expensive. Because air freight normally is done with both dedicated freighter aircraft and the passenger aircraft who has freight in them, right now, since there's no passenger flights flying, it's a much less aircraft that can do the air freight. And when you have a difference in supply and demand, it means that something is going to give. And what's happened is that the price of air freight has shot through the roof, sometimes 8-10 times higher than normal. And in that situation, it might make sense to actually bring back some of these fuel guzzlers and use them for freight during the time when you have these high freight prices and low oil price, because then the airline might be able to make some money this way. But this is a very short-term solution. It's not something that's going to work in the medium or long term. In the medium or long term, we are going to see these old beautiful aircraft disappearing from the skies, and that's the last time we will ever see them. Because on top of this, you also have the environmental impact. There's no question that the environmental impact is going to be high up on the agenda, which is yet another reason why airlines will want to start using the more high efficient aircraft, uses less fuel, has less environmental impact, and is better overall for the planet. Okay. So that brings us down to the last question that I was going to answer, which is what's going to happen to your ticket prices when you want to go for your vacation once you can afford it? Well, the likelihood here is that you're going to see some quite big oscillations, all right? There's going to be initially, as all of the countries start opening up the borders and the airlines start flying again, the airlines are going to do whatever they can in order to get you back traveling again, to try to make sure that this is not a long-term change in the behavioral pattern of the passengers, but that they want you to start pumping, going away for weekends again. And the way to do that, especially if the passengers are afraid, is to lower the prices. So you can expect when we start opening it up again in Europe, which is where I fly, that you're going to see a lot of great deals, great prices where you can travel for almost nothing. And the same is going to go for hotels. Everyone in the travel sector is going to want you to get back flying again. But over the medium to long term, what will happen is because there's been consolidations, because there are now less airlines that are competing against each other, because these airlines are now flying fewer routes, it is likely that the prices is going to start rising. And that is, once again, the airlines are going to want to try to recoup the money that they have missed out on during 2020. And they are going to do that by increasing your prices and by using the most efficient routes, trying to not lose money on inefficient routes, on inefficient networks. And on top of that, you also have the kind of joker, which is what's going to happen with the nationalized airlines. If there is airlines that have actually been bought up and become fully or partly nationalized by specific countries, how are they going to come in and compete on the market? This we have no idea about, right? We don't know how this is going to work. The only thing we know is that there's going to be a mess. And most of the time, whenever you have nationalized airlines being part of an economy, that spells bad news for the consumer. It's very rare that you'll have nationalized airlines being involved and you get better ticket prices out of it, right? But once again, this is, at the moment, all we can do is guess based on the information that we have in front of us, which is not much. So I might be back again with a different type of video in 3 weeks. Maybe that's a really, really positive video. Maybe it's gotten even worse from where we are now. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens to this ongoing crisis. But one thing that I do want to tell you is, like I said in the beginning of the video, the airline business is not dead. The airline business is not going to collapse. The airline business never does. All right. We want to continue to travel. We always do. And even though a business might be, counted out, the expert is saying that, that's not going to work, the travel business always comes back. Okay. It might take us a year, 2 or 3 years even, depending on how bad this is, but we will be back. And those jobs that you are looking for now, if you're sitting out there thinking, I'm never going to get a job as an airline pilot again, remember that the airlines that are going to take over and take market share, they are going to expand. Probably not back up to the same level as we were back in 2019 for a few years, but eventually we will be back on the curve again. We will be back there and you will be needed because the baby booming generation is still going into retirement. What we're actually seeing is, for example, American Airlines have been offering people from 62 to go into retirement early in order to reduce their employee base. This might happen on a wider scale throughout the world, and in that case, the jobs are going to come back quicker than you think. So stay positive, keep following the data, keeping yourself informed. Remember to follow the PIOC kind of decision-making model that I gave you in an earlier video, and keep following the channel. Now, guys, I hope that you enjoy this kind of videos. I do what I can to research and find out more information and give that to you. And if you think you like it, then I hope that I have earned a subscription. And if I did, then highlight the little notification bell as well, so you get to know when I do things like live streams. I did one together with Juan from Blanco Lirio channel yesterday, which was awesome. And I do all kinds of new type of videos, largely sponsored by my Patreon crew. And that's another thing that I want to say. If you want to support the channel and you think these kind of special videos are worth it, then consider becoming part of my Patreon crew. There's going to be a link up here that you can click, and I really, really appreciate it because it enables me to do more specialized videos that are made for maybe a less big audience, but takes up more facts. That's it. Have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are. Stay safe out there, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Right, guys, I really hope that you liked that. If you want more content like that, more aviation content, well then, check this out. I hope that you have subscribed to the channel and that you've highlighted the little notification bell. See you inside of the Mentour Aviation app and have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye-bye.